Hi, my name's Tom and I'm a building surveyor, and I'm here to talk about how to kill and remove black mould from inside your property. I've worked for lots of different councils and local authorities, and this is something I've seen all the time. I've probably seen more black mould than most people have had hot dinners, and this is a classic example of black mould in the corner of a. This is another classic one where mould will form by a bed. Now, most people associate black mould with dampness, but what they don't associate it with is condensation, which in 99% of cases black mould is just condensation forming on walls. Now, it's definitely not rising damp, because rising damp will bring up nitrates from the floor, and that will stop the black mould from forming, and you'll also get like a tide mark or a stain mark with rising damp. You certainly don't get that with black mould. It's also not penetrating damp from the outside or roof leak, because you'll get a stain effect as well, and often with penetrating damp from the outside, the plaster work will start to crumble, a skirting board will start to rot. You definitely won't get that black mould. Condensation, you can tell it's condensation because you'll get black mould on the surface, which you can easily wipe off, and underneath the substrate will be relatively okay, and you wouldn't get that with any damp from the outside or from the floor. So this is another prime example, black mould which is formed in the corner behind some sort of furniture or object that's been placed in the corner. If your house is like that, God help you. That's something like from a horror film. That's obviously not been used for a while, and through lack of heating and ventilation, the walls have gone black. This is another prime example of what I see, mould forming around windows. Doesn't matter if the windows are double glazed, timber or metal, mould will form around windows if you're not wiping the condensation that's forming on them. This is another good example of mould in the bathroom, and it's in the where the wall meets the ceiling, and that's often the place where you'll get it. This one's got an extractor fan, which is good, but it's obviously not doing its job. Right, if you don't take anything else from this video, you need a mould eradication kit. Bleach is okay, but it just won't cut the mustard. You need something with an active ingredient which is called halofen. Halofen is a chemical which was created several decades ago and was used to clean hospitals, and it's particularly effective against black mould. It will kill the spores for good, and it will bring your property back to square one, because often if the black mould spores have been there some time, they'll get into the plasterwork, and bleach will not kill them off. They will come back, but with mould eradication kits it will kill them. Now there's a link below. If you click on that, it will take you to where you can buy mould kits, and this is what you need. Now they're not that cheap, but the flip side is, do you want to live with mould in your property? Most people would say no. The kits, you can use them if you're asthmatic or you're pregnant. They've got gloves, masks, and perfectly acceptable. You can use them. So, if, like I said, if you take nothing else, you need this. Most people won't have huge mould problems. They'll just have them in certain small areas, normally the kitchen or the bathroom or the bedroom. So please use one of these. This is where you're really going to stop it. So I want to talk to you in a bit more detail about black mould. Now, millions of homes are affected by black mould, and it's more of a problem than actual leaks or rising damp. It's kind of the curse of the 21st century, and I've seen it in furniture, I've seen it on toys, I've seen it clothes inside wardrobes, you name it, I've seen it everywhere. So what causes condensation? Well, we're all breathing, we're all cooking, washing, having a bath. Some people dry their clothes on the landing on a clothes horse. Our lifestyles have changed dramatically over the past 50 years. We're all working 9 till 5, so washing and cleaning is condensed into first thing in the morning or in the evening, and we're producing vast amounts of moisture, and this is what's causing the problem basically. You often find that the kitchen and the bathroom are where you'll mainly see mould, although it'll often migrate to the bedrooms, and often bungalows and flats are particularly affected because they haven't got that airflow that a house would have with an upstairs. So the real causes are homes that are poorly heated and ones that are not ventilated. Now, I've also seen it in new homes which are literally about 6 months old, and it really is a case of educating the owner, because modern houses are actually, they do air tightness tests on them. They've got brand new doors, brand new windows, and although it's part of the building regs to have ventilation, there is not enough ventilation in these new houses. There's just sealed up boxes. If you think back 100 years, we all lived in places that had leaky doors and windows, timber, and fireplaces, and the properties breathed, and you never had this mould problem. But now we live in these sealed boxes, and mould is becoming more and more of a problem. So what's basically happening? Well, it's exactly the same as a glass of cold water. You've probably seen water droplets form on the outside. Now, you can't see moisture in the air, but it's always there inside your home. And if you're producing vast quantities of it, it's going to hit the dew point, which is exactly what happened on the outside of this glass, and it will form on the walls. And you can't see it with the naked eye, but water is condensing, turning into a liquid state on the wall, and it's turned into mould. You'll get it inside your car on a rainy day. You'll get it on the bathroom cabinet when you come out of a hot shower. So what do you do in those cases? Well, you'll ventilate, you'll open your window, and if you're in a car, you'll probably turn on the heater. So that is the key. You need to heat and ventilate. Sometimes insulation can be a problem, which I'll come to. So how do we know it's condensation? Well, it normally gets worse in the coldest months of the year. It'll be on the coldest surfaces, so your glazed windows, your lintels, which are the kind of a concrete thing above the window if you don't know what it is. On the reveals, that's the sides of your windows, on water floor junctions where they meet, often on corners of rooms. Like I said, you'll see it mostly in kitchens, bathrooms and bedrooms. Always tends to happen on non-porous surfaces like glazing. You eventually will get mould growth, especially around windows if you're not wiping off the excess condensation forming. They normally have definite edges and kind of crescent shaped. Condensation, as I've said before, will form in rooms where you're creating the most amount of moisture, and rooms which are unheated. Not so much of a problem now, but flueless paraffin and butane heaters are especially bad for creating moisture. Also, most people dry their clothes on the radiators. This is not a good thing to do. And like I said, I've seen it everywhere. I've seen it in cupboards, behind cupboards, curtains, furniture, you name it, it gets everywhere eventually. So what's the cure? Well, we've seen there are two main factors. It's the amount of moisture and the air temperature. So what can we do then? Well, we either need to reduce the amount of water vapor produced or increase the ventilation. And we need to increase the temperature. So we can do this by increasing the heat output or input, improving thermal insulation, or even better still, a combination of the both. So ventilation. Well, you need to open up windows. Most people don't do this. It's the best thing you can do. Ventilation will remove the moisture in the air. The next best thing you can do is install extractor fans, especially in the bathroom and in the kitchen. They shouldn't be linked to a light switch. They should be ones that are linked to humidity, so they come on if they read the level of humidity is reached a certain level, or you can get ones that just run 24 hours 7 days a week. They're the best ones to have. So increase your ventilation. Heating, you really want a steady heat output. Storage heaters are not good for this. Central heating, air source, grain source, that's good, but remember, if you're only having it on for an hour in the morning and a couple of hours in the evening, that's not enough. I understand with heating bills going up and up and up, but if you don't heat your property and warm up the fabric of the building, you are much more likely to get mould within your property. Right, in some cases insulation is not good enough. Now if you're getting it on the ceiling, the first thing I would do is check the loft insulation. Sometimes it's been pushed back because something's been done in the loft. Loft insulation should be around 250 to 300 millimeters, so I would check for that. If you're getting it on the walls, which I've seen walls get mould even though they've been very well insulated, but it's worth checking if you have insulation in the cavity, because if you haven't, then with grants it can normally cost about £100, and they'll improve the thermal level of the wall, and that will help reduce condensation. Right, as I said before, mould kits, they're the best thing you can do in the short term. If your mould problem isn't too bad, you're going to have to do a little bit of work to kill it off, and that's the best thing you can have. If you're still not sure it's condensation, then you can do a mould test kit, and that will determine what's happening within your property. I think this one's about £10. There'll be a link below, and I'll put all these products there, so if you want to look at them in more detail you can. This is often quite good because a moisture or damp detector will often read that the wall is not actually damp. That's because it isn't. It's just simply mould on the surface of the wall. The actual wall is fine, it's dry. So it's worth, where you're getting the mould, just to press a moisture meter. There'll be two prongs that will measure the electrical resistance between the two prongs, and as electricity conducts moisture or water well, you'll get a reading, and if it's low, you know it's definitely not dampness within the wall, it's mould on the surface, i.e. it's condensation. Again, there's a link for that down there for some really cheap damp detectors. These are quite common. I don't know how well they work, but if you're getting mould within your wardrobe, these will help to reduce the moisture within the wardrobe. They're actually like sachets or whatever they're called. They'll actually pick up the moisture, and you have to remove them every so often when they fill up with water. If you get mould on your clothes, this is the best product you can use. There's a link below in my description. That will kill off the mould on your clothes, and it's probably the best thing to use. So this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do a bit of scrubbing with your mould kit to get rid of it. I know it's not the most exciting thing to do, but if you do that, you'll end up with this, a nice shiny room, and you won't be suffering from mould anymore. So remember, heating, ventilation, check your insulation. In the short term, get a mould kit. You might want to think about getting some of the accessories I've talked about. There'll be links below taking you to all of these. That will cure your mould, and you'll no longer have it, and you can walk away with a smile on your face. There's nothing worse than coming into a house and you can smell damp and mould, and no one likes it, especially when friends and relatives come around. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye bye.